First up, the Washington quarter, and what makes it valuable. Even in fine condition first, let's set the stage. The 1983D Washington quarter was minted at the Denver Mint. That's what the small d under the eagle means. In total, over 617 million of these quarters were produced. So you might be thinking, if there were so many made, why are some of them valuable? Well, 1983 was a unique year for U.S. coins due to the recession and budget cuts at the time. The U.S. Mint didn't produce any official mint sets for collectors in 1982 or 1983. That means most of the coins from those years, including the 1983D quarter, only circulated. So finding one in great condition, even fun, is trickier than you might think. Let's quickly define fine condition in coin collecting. In this grade, a coin shows moderate wear. The major features like Washington's profile and the eagle's feathers are still clear, but not sharp. There's visible wear on the high points, and some detail may be flat, but overall the coin is still fully readable and attractive while the face value is just thousands dollars. These quarters in fine condition typically sell for $300. Depending on the demand and market, that's over 12 times face value. Not bad for pocket change, right? And remember, these values aren't set in stone. On platforms like eBay or at coin shows, coins in fine or better condition with strong details can sometimes fetch even more, especially if there's a beer looking to complete a circulated type set. 1980 Washington quarter with a P Mint mark. You might think it's just a regular quarter, but wait until you hear about its value in very fine condition and what makes it stand out in today's market. The Washington quarter has been a staple in American currency since 1932. The 1980 Washington quarter is part of the classic design series struck at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark right here, the coin's obverse side, just to the right of Washington's neck. This series was made mostly for circulation, so you might think all these quarters are just worth their face value 25 cents. But collectors know that coins in very fine condition and with certain characteristics can carry a premium. So what exactly does very fine condition mean for this coin? Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state based on their wear and overall appearance. Very fine or VF condition means the coin has light to moderate wear on the high points, but most details remain clear and visible. For the 1980 Washington quarter, very fine condition means you can clearly see Washington's hair details. The lettering is sharp and the rims are well defined. This condition is fairly common, but still desirable among collectors who want quality without the higher price of near-mint coins. Now, the 1980 Washington quarter was minted in the millions, over 300 million coins from the Philadelphia Mint alone. So they're not rare in terms of sheer numbers. However, finding one in very fine condition, especially without any damage or heavy wear, can still be a little challenging. Additionally, some quarters from this year may have mint errors or unique varieties that can boost their value, but today, we're focusing on the standard 1980p quarter in very fine condition. So, what's the value of a 1980 Washington quarter with a P Mint mark in very fine condition in today's market? According to the latest coin price guides and recent auction sales, the value typically ranges between $170. That might not sound like a lot compared to rare coins, but remember, these quarters were made for circulation and millions exist. The premium comes from the coin's condition. Very fine is several grades above average circulated coins. Collectors looking to fill out their collections with higher grade common quarters often seek out coins like this. If you have a 1980 Washington quarter with a P Mint mark and believe it's in very fine condition, here are some tips to maximize its value. While the 1980p Washington quarter might not be the rarest or most expensive coin, it's a great entry point for collectors who want to build a quality set without breaking the bank. Plus, its classic design and place in American history make it a coin worth holding onto. Next up, the 1989 quarter with the P Mint mark. We'll be exploring what makes these coins special, what very fine condition means, and most importantly, what they're worth in today's market. So if you're a collector or just curious about coin values, stick around because this one's packed with info. First off, let's talk a bit about the 1989 Washington quarter. The Washington quarter has been a staple of U.S. coinage since 1932, honoring our first president. In 1989, these quarters were minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why you'll see the P Mint mark on these coins. The P Mint mark indicates that the coin was produced in Philadelphia, one of the primary U.S. mints. It's important to note that the Philadelphia Mint did not include a mint mark on quarters prior to 1980, so 1989 quarters with the P are part of a more modern era of coinage now. Before we get into the value, let's talk condition, because condition is king in coin collecting. The grading scale ranges from poor to mint state, with many levels in between. Very fine, or VF, is one of the intermediate grades. In the very fine condition, a coin shows moderate wear but all major details remain clear. The lettering, date, and mint mark are easily readable, and the overall design is still quite sharp. However, you will see some smoothing on the high points due to circulation. So, what's a 1989 Washington quarter with a P Mint mark in very fine condition worth today? The straightforward answer is that these coins are mostly common. Millions were minted, so they aren't rare typically. A 1989 quarter in VF condition has a value slightly above face value due to minor collector interest. Most dealers price these between $120 and $150. Look for minting errors like double die obverse, off-center strikes, or die cracks. These errors can significantly boost value, sometimes into the tens or even hundreds of dollars. Proof-like or cameo finish. Some circulation coins have proof-like qualities due to minting variations. These are rare and could be worth more. Grading by a professional service. A coin graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, especially if graded VF30 or higher, can command a premium right now. With the rising interest in coin collecting, fueled by online marketplaces, demand for high-quality quarters has seen a slight uptick. Still, the 1989 P quarter remains a common date, so it's not a high-value coin unless it's an error or in uncirculated condition. Next up, the 1988 quarter with the D Mint mark, and why this coin in extra fine condition could be worth more than you think. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, commemorating George Washington's 200th birthday. The 1988 quarter was minted at multiple locations, but today we're focusing on the Denver Mint version, marked with the letter D. Well, millions of these quarters were produced. In fact, over 176 million in Denver alone. Certain factors, like condition and rarity, can elevate their value significantly. The D Mint mark on the 1988 Washington quarter tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. In terms of raw numbers, the 1988D quarter is quite common, with a mintage of approximately 176 million coins. So why should collectors care? Extra fine, or EF, is a popular grading term among collectors that describes a coin with light wear on the highest points, but with all major details sharply visible. On the Sheldon grading scale, extra fine is typically EF40 to EF45. In this grade, you can expect the coin's features, like George Washington's hair and the eagle on the reverse, to be crisp, with minimal flattening according to recent market data and coin value guides. Most circulated 1988D quarters sell for their face value $100. However, once you reach extra fine condition, the value starts to increase on average. A 1988D Washington quarter graded EF-40 to EF45 could be valued between $180. That might not sound like a fortune, but it's 4 to 12 times the coin's face value. A nice little premium for collectors. So there you have it. Well, the 1988D Washington quarter in extra fine condition isn't going to make you rich overnight. It's definitely a neat collectible that's worth more than just a quarter. If you want to build a solid coin collection, adding well-preserved quarters like this is a smart move. Next up, the 1982 Washington quarter with the P Mint mark. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, you'll want to stick Around because we're uncovering how valuable this coin can be, especially in extremely fine condition. First off, the 1980 to Washington quarter is a part of the long-running series that began back in 1932, commemorating George Washington's 200th birthday. It's a classic piece of American coinage. But not all quarters from 1982 are created equal. The P Mint mark means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of these quarters in 1982, so at first glance, you might think these coins are common and hold little value beyond face, but that's where coin grading comes into play. Especially the condition coins in circulated condition generally have low value, usually just their face value or a small premium if they're slightly older. But coins graded as extremely fine, or XF, are a different story. So what does extremely fine actually mean in the coin world? Extremely fine means the coin has light wear on the highest points of the design, but still shows sharp details with minimal marks. It's a big step up from very fine or lower grades, and a lot more desirable for collectors. So, why is a 1980 to P Washington quarter in XF condition valuable? Well, for starters, fewer coins survive in such great shape after decades of circulation. Plus, certain errors and variations can push the value higher. For example, collectors are on the lookout for doubled dies, off-center strikes, or even coins with unusual toning. But the plain 1980 to P quarter in XF condition itself can be worth more than just $169, sometimes several dollars. Depending on the market, that might not sound like a fortune, but when you think about it, you could have thousands of these quarters sitting around. And if you manage to find some in this condition or better, you're holding little gems worth much more than their face value. Remember, condition is king in coin collecting, and even common dates can fetch a premium if they're well preserved. The 1980 to P Washington quarter is a great example of this. A coin you might overlook, but one that could surprise you in value. Next up, the 1990 for Washington quarter with the P Mint mark, especially those in extra fine condition. If you've got one of these coins, you'll definitely want to stick around because I'm breaking down everything you need to know about their value in today's market. Alright, let's start with a quick background. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932. The 1990 for quarters are part of the modern series minted after the 1965 switch from silver to a copper nickel-clad composition. These coins aren't made of precious metals, but don't let that fool you. Some versions can be surprisingly valuable. When we talk about the P Mint mark, we're referring to coins minted at the Philadelphia Mint. The 1990 for Washington quarters from Philadelphia are very common since millions were produced, but the Mint mark helps us identify exactly where your coin was struck. It's located on the obverse side, usually near the date. Now, one of the biggest factors that determine a coin's value is its condition. Coin grading can seem complicated, but basically it ranges from poor to mint state. Extra fine, or EF, is a grade that means the coin shows only slight wear on the highest points, but overall still has a sharp appearance with much of its original detail intact. For collectors, an extra fine 1990 for Washington quarter means it's better than average circulated coins, but not quite uncirculated or mint condition. So, how rare is the 1990 for P quarter in extra fine? Honestly, these quarters are not super rare because Philadelphia produced over 570 million quarters that year. But here's the catch: most circulated coins are in lower grades like very fine or fine. Finding one in extra fine condition has at a bit of a premium in today's market. A 1990 for P quarter in extra fine condition usually sells for around $200. That's slightly above face value, but nothing crazy. The value can creep up if the coin has exceptional eye appeal or very sharp details. Now, you might be wondering, are there any 1990 for P quarters worth more? The answer lies in errors and special varieties. For example, some coins might have die cracks, doubled dies, or unusual minting errors that collectors hunt for. If your 1990 for P quarter in extra fine condition shows any unusual features, it's worth getting it examined by a professional grader. Otherwise, the typical extra fine quarters value is modest, but still a neat collectible. If you're a collector, I recommend keeping your 1994 P quarters stored properly in coin flips or holders to preserve that extra fine grade. And if you're looking to sell, check recent online auction prices or consult with local coin dealers to get the best offer. To sum it up, the 1994 Washington quarter with the P mint mark in extra fine condition is a common coin that carries a slight premium over face value. While it's not a gold mine, it's definitely worth a little more than your everyday pocket change, especially if it's got great eye appeal or is a neat collectible piece for your set. Next up, the 1982 Washington quarter with the P mint mark. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, you'll want to stick around because we're uncovering how valuable this coin can be, especially in extremely fine condition. First off, the 1982 Washington quarter is a part of the long-running series that began back in 1932, commemorating George Washington's 200th birthday. It's a classic piece of American coinage. But not all quarters from 1982 are created equal. The P mint mark means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of these quarters in 1982. So at first glance, you might think these coins are common and hold little value beyond face, but that's where coin grading comes into play. Especially the condition coins in circulated condition generally have low value, usually just their face value or a small premium if they're slightly older. But coins graded as extremely fine or XF are a different story. So what does extremely fine actually mean in the coin world? Extremely fine means the coin has light wear on the highest points of the design, but still shows sharp details with minimal marks. It's a big step up from very fine or lower grades, and a lot more desirable for collectors. So, why is a 1982 P Washington quarter in XF condition valuable? Well, for starters, fewer coins survive in such great shape after decades of circulation. Plus, certain errors and variations can push the value higher. For example, collectors are on the lookout for double dies, off-center strikes, or even coins with unusual toning. But the plain 1982 P quarter in XF condition itself can be worth more than just $169, sometimes several dollars. Depending on the market, that might not sound like a fortune, but when you think about it, you could have thousands of these quarters sitting around. And if you manage to find some in this condition or better, you're holding little gems worth much more than their face value. Remember, condition is king in coin collecting, and even common dates can fetch a premium if they're well preserved. The 1982 P Washington quarter is a great example of this, a coin you might overlook, but one that could surprise you in value. Next up, the 1965 Washington quarter dollars without a mint mark, specifically in extremely fine condition. We'll explore what makes these coins special, how to identify them, and what their current market values are in 2025. First, a bit of history. The Washington quarter was first minted in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. By 1965, however, something important changed. The U.S. Mint stopped using silver in quarters. 1965 was the first year quarters were made from a copper nickel clad instead of 90% silver. This was due to rising silver prices and a coin shortage. Another notable detail: minus 1,965 quarters do not have a mint mark, which was also a change. From 1965 to 1967, the U.S. Mint omitted mint marks to discourage coin hoarding. So, when we say no mint mark, that means there's no letter D for Denver or S for San Francisco on the coin. For 1965 quarters, all were minted with no mint mark as standard, regardless of the facility. The coins were struck at multiple mints, but they all look the same from the front. Now, what about the coin's condition? We're focusing on extremely fine or XF coins. An extremely fine coin shows light wear on the highest points, but most details are sharp and clear. For Washington quarters, this means the hair details on Washington's head are mostly intact. The eagle on the reverse has fine feathers visible, and the rims are strong without major dings. Collectors prize XF coins because they combine beauty with affordability, unlike uncirculated coins, which can be more expensive. Here's the big question. How much is a 1965 no mint mark Washington quarter in extremely fine condition worth in today's market? Since 1965 quarters are clad and were produced in very high numbers, over 1.5 billion coins, their value isn't as high as earlier silver quarters. Most circulated 1965 quarters are worth just face value $180 or slightly more to collectors. However, in extremely fine condition, these quarters can fetch between $220 on average, depending on market demand. Coins with exceptional eye appeal, or those graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC as XF45 or XF for O, might push the upper end of that range. To wrap up, 1965 no mint mark Washington quarters in extremely fine condition are a great entry point for collectors who want affordable yet historically interesting coins. While they won't make you rich overnight, they're a valuable part of the story of American coinage. Next up, the 1985 Washington quarter with a P mint mark. You might think it's just a common quarter, but believe it or not, some of these coins can actually be worth a surprising amount in today's market. So stick around, and by the end of this video, you'll know everything you need to about this coin, from its background to what makes some of them valuable, and how much they're actually worth right now. Alright, let's start with the basics. The Washington quarter was first issued in 1932 and has been a staple of American coinage ever since. The 1985 quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, which is what the P mint mark stands for. In general, 1985 quarters aren't super rare. Millions were produced that year. But like many coins, condition and certain varieties can make all the difference. Most 1985 quarters you'll find in your change are in circulated condition, meaning they've been used in everyday transactions and show signs of wear. These coins are typically worth their face value, which is $200, but collectors are more interested in coins in better condition, especially uncirculated coins, or those graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. When we talk about valuable quarters, we're mostly focusing on coins in mint state condition, meaning they look like they just came off the press, with no signs of wear. The grading scale goes from MS60, which is the lowest mint state grade, up to MS70, which is a perfect, flawless coin. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin. So, how valuable is a 1985 P Washington quarter in good condition? Well, if you have one graded MS65, it could be worth around $300 depending on the grading company and demand. That's a bit more than face value, but not a huge jump. However, coins graded MS67 or higher can fetch higher prices. There are no major famous error varieties specifically for the 1985P quarter, but keep an eye out for any double dies, off-center strikes, or other mint errors. These can drastically increase a coin's value, sometimes into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, but those are quite rare for this particular year and mint mark.